Revelation, we now learn an eyewitness says the killer fled the scene of the Idaho sleighs with a vacuum cleaner. We assume that means a hand vac. Now, welcome to the crazy house, because I've got one guest claiming that he stole the hand vac from the victims. I've got another guest stating that a victim tried to fight off the killer with a hand vac. Reality check. This would not be the first killer that tried to sanitize a scene. Does anybody recall Fotis Dulos?
Fotis Dulos, husband of missing Jennifer Dulos, takes an employee's Toyota Tacoma, borrowed without permission, to a car wash and detail shop to try to clean a brown-colored stain from the seats. Dulos tells the employee to replace the front seats, and he does, but keeps the originals, ultimately giving them to police. Police allege the stains were blood.
He's not the only one. I assume you all remember the beautiful young teacher out of Memphis, Eliza Fletcher, out jogging, minding her own business. 4:30 a.m. was the only time she could work out because she worked and took care of children. Remember her killer?
The man accused of abducting and murdering Eliza Fletcher is seen cleaning out his car just hours after the Memphis teacher disappeared. Video shows Cleotha Abston spending more than an hour in the passenger side of his SUV. A witness says Abston vigorously cleaned the interior of his car with a carpet cleaner. Fletcher's dead body was found close to where police said Abston is seen cleaning out his vehicle.
I mean, it goes on and on and on. You've got Scott Peterson that suddenly cleaned the whole apartment, the whole home after he murdered Lacey and Connor. You've got Jodi Arias, who cleaned up and even did laundry. Luckily, she left her digital camera in the washing machine, which revealed her foot by the dead body. But the cleaning, the obsessive cleaning, the thought that you can somehow wash away forensics, that doesn't happen, Joe Scott.
No, it doesn't. I've held early on, and I've been proven wrong, I think, at this point in time, based on the evidence. I held that the car was going to be, quote unquote, a rolling crime scene, that it would be, there'd be so much transfer evidence in there because, having worked many sharp force injury related homicides over the course of my career, you've got 4 victims. There's no way that this individual could not have been potentially supersaturated with blood and transferred that evidence into the car. And right now, that hasn't occurred. So, yeah, when you think about it, I think that there is obviously evidence that this guy is cleaning. However, what's the choice here? Is he cleaning the crime scene with a handheld vac, or is he cleaning his car with a handheld vac? I don't know. Did he show up? He's so deranged in his
Okay, well,
mind.
put him up. Why do I have to choose? You've got an eyewitness stating she sees a tall white male with bushy eyebrows wearing a face mask, lean, and he's got a hand vac. You have, this is a pattern, Joe Scott. Then you've got his apartment, immaculate, where his shower curtain has been taken out. The rings are still up there, but the shower curtain's gone. What could possibly have been on it? Blood, maybe? Think. And hiding an extra vacuum canister in the back of his closet. But that's all deduction. We know that the law enforcement watched him meticulously clean out his car for hours. His sister even said so. Then they see him at 3 a.m. cleaning out the house, getting rid of evidence. He can't stop himself. Does it make sense to you and I, to you and me, that he took in a hand vac to try to get rid of evidence? No, because we've been to murder scenes. We know that's impossible. But a 29-year-old PhD student in criminology who's never been to a real murder scene probably thinks, hey, I can get rid of evidence. He planned everything meticulously, Joe Scott. This is so him.
Yeah, but he still doesn't wear a belt where he can put the sheath of the knife on it and hold it. He leaves that behind. So if he's so OCD, why in the hell did he leave that critical piece of evidence behind? Which, by the way, contains allegedly his DNA. He left it behind, Nancy. So he's going to go in, he's going to clean the scene with a vacuum cleaner.
We are not the engineers of the evidence. We take it as we find it and we build our case. How many times, Joe Scott, I'm really actually surprised at you. How many times have we said, what an idiot? Idiots! Because they do idiotic things.
Well,
They all do,
no, no, no.
even criminal masterminds.
Your supposition here is that everything is based upon this eyewitness statement in the dark, in this hallway, where you can't make out specifics. So I don't know. He's carrying a handheld vac. Well, gee whiz, what brand was it? I don't know. I can't
Okay, question
imagine
to
this-
you, Joe Scott. You're doing what Philip Dubé was doing earlier. That is, you're parsing, you're cherry picking the parts of her eyewitness testimony
No.
that you like. You're going to
She's
take
being
some.
very
Okay, so you want to throw out all of her testimony then?
No, I want to know, where was the
Oh,
knife?
you only
all
want to
the
keep the
time?
parts you like.
No, it's not that I want to keep. I want to seek the truth in this and what is available
So
for
do
us.
I. And the witness says hand vac. You know what? Let's talk about the shower curtain. Can we talk about that?
Yeah,
Hermione
absolutely.
Rodriguez joining us, chief U.S. reporter, dailymail.com. Tell me about the missing shower curtain.
That's right. We know that Kohberger took a lot of measures to clean everything in his life following this murder. When detectives reached his Washington home, they found that there was no shower curtain, of course, suggesting maybe he could have taken a shower in there and there was evidence he needed to get rid of. There was also no trash at all, Nancy. And this is something that he was also doing in his parents' house in Pennsylvania. He was not throwing his own trash out. We know he was wearing gloves in his parents' house. So we know Kohberger tried to cover his tracks, which is why, as your guests are mentioning, there is a juxtaposition because he seemed to be so careful in some ways, or attempted to be careful, but then did things like leaving a knife sheath behind and maybe thinking he could clean up a crime scene with a handbag, which of course is absolutely impossible. And I think he should have known that as a PhD student of criminology. I mean, you may be able to pick up some hairs, but he must have expected that this scene was going to be bloody and that a handbag would not have helped. Yes, his home showed that he was taking measures to make sure there was no evidence there.
I don't like him looking like he did a white collar crime. This isn't a white collar crime, people. This is people, you work your whole life to get them to go to college, and then they get killed while they're asleep that night
in their bed.
And we're gonna treat this guy like he just traded insider trading of his own company stocks. It's not white collar.
And as we go to air tonight, we learn Kohberger has fired a lawyer. Listen.
Brian Kohberger is fine-tuning the team that will represent him at trial in August. Jay Logsdon, an Idaho public defender assisting Ann Taylor, will be replaced with a Northern California attorney who specializes in DNA and previously testified as a paid consultant for the defense. Bicka Barlow, formerly of the San Francisco Public Defender's Office, has been admitted to the case pro hoc vice. Barlow has run a private law office with a focus on cases that involve forensic DNA for over 10 years and claims to have led the first successful challenge of STR DNA evidence in the U.S.
Brian Kohberger is not the first famous celebrity defendant to get rid of their lawyer. Does the name Michael Jackson ring a bell?
Just after Michael Jackson's Santa Barbara indictment on 9 felony counts in the alleged molestation of a young boy, Jackson fires his attorneys Mark Garagos and Benjamin Braffman, the singer commenting that he needs the full attention of his representation while his life is at stake.
Joining me, Philip Dubé, veteran trial lawyer out of the LA jurisdiction, has handled many a case in court. I remember when Michael Jackson fired Mark Garagos, and Mark Garagos has tried a lot of cases, but Jackson did it.
Yeah, but there's a difference between being privately retained and court-appointed. In the court-appointed cases, counsel can withdraw if there's a conflict or if they feel they don't have the skills that are required to do the representation. So you bring somebody else on who's paid by the court. It's very, very common. In this particular case, Ann Taylor is lead counsel. She's the captain of the ship, and she needs to decide what, if any, type of assistance she needs by way of second chair, third chair, fourth chair, who's going to do the science and who's going to do the mitigation. And it seems like the people that they had for the DNA or for the science weren't well equipped enough to defend him with this mountain of forensic evidence. And I think the end game initially was to try to get all the forensics suppressed. When that failed, plan B now is bring on board people who are really lettered and schooled in the forensics.
Philip Dubé, do you think it has anything to do with the replaced, fired lawyer Logsdon putting not one, but both feet in his mouth last week in court when he described our country, America, let me get this right, as a panopticon, which is essentially a large prison with guards, a surveillance state where your privacy is going to be trampled upon by the police. He said that, and it made all the headlines.
Well, at a minimum, it's problematic because everybody's under a gag order. You should not be talking to the press, giving any media statements about the case, about the system, about law enforcement.
It was in court. It was in
Oh,
court.
Good.
Open court.
Okay, but fair
Even
enough.
the mouse in the corner could hear it. I don't know what you're talking about. Privacy.
No, I understand. But the point is, I don't think that's enough to remove court-appointed counsel from the case. You have to show that counsel just simply cannot perform to the degree that other similarly attorneys perform, constitutionally anyway.
A million people can tell me, don't let it consume you. Be patient. Don't think about it. Just, but I am me. I can't. This is my daughter. This is her best friend. This is two other people. I can't stop just being consumed by it.
In the last hours, a bombshell. The defense now claims that they are advancing the theory that Brian Kohberger, the PhD student, the teaching assistant in the criminology department at Pullman, is autistic. Hermanio Rodriguez, again, tell me about that claim.
Right. So this is a new claim we had never heard before in the years we have been covering this case. And it's interesting that it comes right after the Kohberger defense team replaced one lawyer with another who's more focused on DNA. It also came after the judge said he was not going to throw out the DNA evidence obtained through genetic tracking. Now, Kohberger's defense has asked the prosecution to drop the death penalty, claiming that Kohberger is in the autism spectrum. Again, they submitted no evidence of this, no tests, no historical documentation of this diagnosis. So we are sure to see the prosecution now ask for evidence of this alleged autistic diagnosis.
Dr. Monty Miller joining me out of Riverside, California, director, forensic DNA experts. Dr. Miller, again, thank you for being with us. Dr. Miller, the odds in this case that the DNA is incorrect, I mean, it's hard for a layperson to believe. I didn't believe the first time I used DNA, deoxyribonucleic acid, in court, but I had to check it, and it's correct. The odds are like 1 in 8 octillion that it could be anybody else's DNA but Kohberger's. Would you agree with that type of statistic in DNA analysis?
The way I would do them, you end up basically with a number so big, just like that one, that says the DNA came from him. I mean, it's to that point where scientifically, logically, statistically, you've ruled out anything else. It really, unless somebody else's DNA matches him, and somebody else's DNA that matched him was left there and implicated him. And so the chances of that happening are just zero.
Joe Scott Morgan joining me, professor of forensics, Jacksonville State University. Joe Scott, do you agree with Dr. Monty Miller? Those statistics are real?
Yeah, I mean, 1,000%. And I have to tell you, no, he does not have an expectation of privacy relative to any of this biological evidence that they have collected. And they're trying to, essentially kneecap the evidence and how it was collected and how it was utilized in this particular case. And I think the defense realizes that this is a real uphill battle when you begin to consider the numeric values involved in this.
So, Philip Dubé, veteran trial lawyer, joining us out of LA. Bottom line, the DNA is irrefutable. It's 1 in 8 octillion that this DNA could have been left by anybody other than Brian Kohberger on a knife sheath under a dead body. So where can they go now with a mental defect claim? That's what's happening, Philip.
Well, first of all, in the guilt phase, I think the only thing that the touch DNA proves is that somebody with his DNA on a snap left it at the scene. It does not, in fact, prove that he committed the quadruple homicide. It just puts his touch DNA on some item that's in the stream of commerce at the scene. So the question is going to become for the state, what else do they have to put him at that house slitting all these students' throats?
You're seeing video of the victims as the courtroom battle rages on.